1 Samuel 22, verse 14. But in order to understand how this verse applies to this duty to defend our neighbor's innocence, we will need to understand the context in which it actually takes place. So, here's the background. Even though Saul was the king of Israel, he was jealous of David. Saul's son Jonathan discovered that his father was plotting to kill David. Since David was Jonathan's best friend, he warned him of his father's plans. As a result, David fled. He stopped to catch his breath in a town just outside Jerusalem called Nob, where a man named Ahimelech was serving as the priest. Because David had left in such a hurry, he did not have any food with him or even a weapon. So he asked Ahimelech for some assistance. Ahimelech was happy to help. David was a famous warrior. He's Saul's son-in-law. And the news of Saul's change of temper towards him had not yet reached Nob. So the king's change of opinion had not yet reached Ahimelech's ears. So he gave David some bread. And then he gave him the only weapon that he had on hand, Goliath's sword, which was being kept as a trophy of sorts. And it was the same sword that David had used to cut off Goliath's head. So he got that sword back. Hello, old friend. We have some memories. A man named Doeg the Edomite, however, was there that day and saw everything that took place. Later, when Saul got word that David had gotten away, he was frustrated and began throwing accusations all over the place, anywhere that he could find something that would stick. And he wanted to know who was helping David out. How does he keep getting away from me? Doeg took this opportunity to report what he had seen, and that is where our text picks up. 1 Samuel 22, 11 through 18. Then the king sent to summon Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, and the priests who were at Nob, and all of them came to the king. And Saul said, "Hear now, son of Ahitub." And he answered, "Here am I, my lord." And Saul said to him, "Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword and have inquired of God for him, so that he has risen up against me to lie in wait as it is to this day?" Then Ahimelech answered the king, "And who among all your servants is so faithful as David? Who is the king's son-in-law and captain over your own bodyguard and honored in your own house? Is today the first time I have inquired of God for him? No. Let not the king impute anything to his servant or to all the house of my father, for your servant has known nothing of this, much or little." And the king said, "You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's house." And the king said to the guard who stood about him, "Turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David." And they knew that he fled and did not disclose it to me. But the servants of the king would not put out their hand and strike the priests of the Lord. Then the king said to Doeg, "You turn and strike the priests." And Doeg the Edomite turned and struck down the priests. And he killed on that day 85 persons who wore the linen ephod. So, in these few verses, we see several examples of people failing and fulfilling their duty to defend their neighbor's innocency, right? So let's begin with the failures. First, King Saul. This whole episode is a result of him falsely accusing David in the first place. This whole thing is happening because he's paranoid that David is trying to take his throne. In fact, it's not David trying to take his throne. God is trying to give his throne to David. And instead of defending David's innocence, he accuses him of treason. Saul was insecure, and just like any of us, when we feel insecure or afraid, he was tempted to look for ways to blame others for the way he felt. I don't like the way I feel. You're making me feel that way. It's your fault. I don't like the way I feel, so I'm mad at you because you make me feel things I don't like feeling. And because we don't like the way we feel, and because we won't take responsibility for our own feelings, it must be someone else's fault. As Spurgeon once noted, we accuse others to excuse ourselves. We accuse others to excuse ourselves. I'm innocent because they're guilty. It's often easier to make up things about our neighbor than it is to face the reality about ourselves. It's way easier to make up something about your neighbor, to have something to stick, than it is to face the reality of what you see looking back at you in the mirror. And so we slander our neighbor's innocence in order to defend our own guilt. We slander our neighbor's innocence to defend our guilt. But take heed and note this: the sins of others, whether real or imagined, never cleanse you of your own. Even if they really did sin, it doesn't cleanse you of yours. The sins of others will never cleanse you from yours. So stop focusing on their sins and start focusing on your own. Another example of failure is Doeg the Edomite. He knew that Ahimelech was not trying to help David usurp Saul's throne. He knew. He was there. He saw it with his own eyes. He knew he was innocent. And yet, He also knew that Saul was looking for someone to blame, and he hoped that perhaps there would be a finder's fee if he found somebody for him. Maybe if I find somebody for this guy to blame, there's something in it for me. So Saul slandered David to try to keep from losing his kingdom, and Doeg slandered Ahimelech to try to gain a position in Saul's kingdom. I'll help you keep it as long as you help me advance in that kingdom. And so we see that our guilt can lead us to lash out at the innocent, either because we are scared of losing something we value, like Saul, or because we are greedy to get something that we don't deserve, like Doeg. Now, let's move on to a couple examples of people fulfilling their duty to defend their neighbor's innocency. First, consider Saul's servants, right? When Saul ordered them to slaughter Ahimelech and the priests, what did they do? They refused. No, we're not going to kill this guy. He's done nothing wrong. We refuse to do it. They presumed a standard of innocent until proven guilty. There's nothing here to stick to this guy. I'm not going to slaughter this guy right now. And they defended that right of innocence by refusing to obey the tyranny of Saul. A second example is that of Ahimelech himself, right? Ahimelech himself. At any given point in this whole thing, he could have changed his story and saved his own skin. He could be like, no, David made me do it. He came in by force. I didn't want to. He took the bread. He took the sword. He's big and strong. I'm just a priest guy wearing linen. He could have done anything to get himself out of it, but he didn't. He stood by David and he defended David. He defended David, and he could have defended his own innocence by casting doubt on David, but he didn't. He didn't cast any doubt on David at all, but he refused to bear false witness, even if it meant being falsely accused himself. So he is sitting being falsely accused. He could have gotten out of that by falsely accusing somebody else, but he didn't. He took the blame and he took the bullet of also being falsely accused now with David. So he stood by David and his decision to help him. Ahimelech was an innocent man who paid the price of a guilty man in order to defend the innocence of another. He took on the guilt of David in order to defend David, and he suffered his life for it. Well, since we are so often more concerned with getting our guilty selves out of trouble than we are with keeping our innocent neighbors out of it, we are reminded of our need to regularly confess our own sins, whether they be related to this duty or to others. So, if you are able, please kneel with me and confess your sins, first privately, and then corporately using the prayer found in your bulletin.